and welcome back to another episode of DSN Podcast. Today we're going to be breaking down March Madness. We already talked about some of the bracketology, but today we've got Coach Williams on to talk about his experience in college basketball, playing and coaching. I'm Nick Abel.
I'm Kyle Granquist.
And welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so head basketball coach for Smet, Coach Williams. You've had a lot of prior experience in March, not only as a player but as a coach. You played in 2 March Madness tournaments. You made the Sweet 16 in one, and then you also were an assistant coach all the way up into a Sweet 16 as well. So I'll start the questions off. What is your favorite game you've played in as a doesn't have to be a March Madness game, but as a college basketball player?
My favorite game I played in would definitely be my junior year at SIU, beating Indiana, beating the Hoosiers on our home court. My sophomore year, we had a tough year, and then the next year, we felt like we had a really good team coming back, and we went to a tournament out in Vegas. So we had a couple wins before that, went out to Vegas. We played Illinois, who was the number 2 team in the country, and we lost to them by 3 at the buzzer. And thinking that's the second best team in the country, so we're good enough to hang with anybody. The very next game on the schedule is Indiana coming to our place, and they were ranked 18th in the country at the time, and we dominated them. We had a sold-out crowd. It was the best atmosphere we ever had at a home game. We beat them by like 10 or 12 points, and the crowd stormed the floor. So beating a Big Ten team on your home floor, you don't normally – at a place like SIU, Carbondale, you don't get – a Big Ten team like that, especially a ranked one, coming into your home place very often. So that was a special moment as a player. I had 24 points in the game, played really well, and stepped up to the occasion and playing in front of a packed house. And it really kind of helped put our program on the map, which kind of took off for the next 6 years.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about you talked about that big win in propelling your program, and then you guys did make a Sweet 16 run. Do you have how different is the atmosphere when it comes to March and the tournament games?
Well, I will say this: there's, like I said, I've been as a player and been as a coach, and it also changes based on where you're at. When you're at a place like SIU, we hadn't been to the tournament in a long time. We make it as a large team. We're the 11 seed. So we went into a selection show Sunday not knowing if we were in or not. And you're sitting there watching, you're nervous, biting your nails, and it comes up, bam, you see your name, and you jump up and you're excited, like, we're in, who are we playing, let's figure this thing out, and let's go. Like, you're just so fired up and ready to roll. So when you don't know if you're getting in or not and you haven't been in a long time, everything was new and exciting. The very next year, we were kind of in the same boat where we didn't know if we were getting in or not, and it came down to the last bracket until we got in. So that was really nervous waiting. But it changed that to, like, being at Purdue or being at Tennessee, places that are used to being in a tournament. It's a little different feeling. You feel like you're in. It's like, all right, well, who are we going to play? And where are we going? What's next? And things like that. So, but no, it definitely it's intense. I will say it's a different feeling when you're in the games and you're at the game compared to when you're watching on TV. On TV you see everything. You're watching everything going on. But when you're a player and you're a coach, it's the same routine as any other game. You do a pregame meal. You go. You do your shoot around. You get there. You get warmed up. You do the pregame talk. You take the floor. You go play the game. I mean, it's pretty much the same. Other than sometimes there's a game right before you, so you wait a little bit and then you're the next game. But you don't see all the hoopla as much other than being in a packed arena. So sometimes it is different as once you're in it compared to when you're sitting back watching as a fan like I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that, actually. When you're playing, maybe you just answered it, but can you sense that atmosphere? Or, like did you, when you're warming up, do you have that feeling of, like we're here in the national tournament right now?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. Taking you back to my playing days when I was at SIU, you're also talking about a place that doesn't get the media coverage that you get at the other places. So and it's the first time, like, especially when we won the first weekend, and I'll go back to that too. But after we won and we advanced to the Sweet 16, so it was a Sunday night. From Sunday until we played our next game on that next Friday was complete chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about every ESPN, Fox Sports, everything. Like, I was on the Best Damn Sports Show with Tom Arnold and Lisa Guerrero and those guys and Chris Rose. We were on SportsCenter. We were on everything. Every media outlet came in because we were the St. Peter's. We were the Cinderella story that year. So they come to Carbondale, and let's find out more about Carbondale. Let's find out more about SIU. So every practice, you get out of practice, there's a press conference. There's media frenzy waiting there to ask you all kinds of questions, something that we weren't used to. Now, when I'm at Tennessee, we have that almost, not the same level of that, but you have a lot of that every day, and you're playing in the SEC. You're at Purdue. You've got Chicago media. You've got Indianapolis media. You got people there talking to you every single day. So our guys are a little bit more used to it. So the brand newness of it and something that it's like what St. Peter's is going through right now, guys, they've got all kinds of interviews set up. Their coach, as soon as practice is over, he's on another radio show. He's on interview. He's getting called in from everybody all across the country. And the sports information director is probably trying to control it, not do too much, and make sure that they're still staying with their routine as much as possible.
Yeah. Talking about a little bit SIU, you were the second all-time leading scorer, and you were the leading point scorer for all 4 years you were there. How did your career progress, and how different was it from the college level going from Mount Vernon to SIU, and how did you make that jump?
Yeah, I mean, one thing with me growing up is I played against older guys my whole life, so jumping to the college level I didn't feel like was a huge jump for me. I was ready to play against bigger, stronger guys, and the way I played was, I was tough. I'd dive on the floor, just throw my body and everything, but I also felt like I was smart. I studied the game, and I knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. And I had some really good coaches along the way that helped me with that. So I knew Coach Weber's system when I got there. It was the same system I ran in high school, so I jumped right in. I was ready to go. The way my game developed over my 4 years was actually probably less scoring and becoming more efficient. My sophomore year, I averaged 18 points a game. The next 2 years, I averaged like 16 and like 15 and a half, and I was a way better player those 2 years. My shooting percentages were up. My assist to turnover ratios were up. I got other players involved. And we just so happened to win 28 games one year and 24, 25 the next year. So it helps your teammates out.
Yeah.
And one thing Coach Weber would talk to me about is, I know you can score it, and I know you feel like you can go take that shot. How do you think that guy feels when you pass up that shot and you give it to him and he knocks down a three? We know how you feel. It's like now you make that guy feel good, and then there's another guy comes off the bench and does it. So you're making your teammates feel good, and you're getting them involved, and it makes you a better team. And something that when you're a competitor, you're just locked in, like, I'm just going to beat you, I'm going to outscore you. It's a way to think of the game a little differently and think of your teammates and how to be the best player by making everybody else around you better.
Mm-hmm.
And then my assist turnover ratio went to 4-1. I think I had 100 assists to 25 turnovers or something in that range.
Yeah.
So taking that many shots and having the ball in my hands and just trying to make every possession count is how I became better. So.
Did you find that the game slowed down when that happened? In that jump of I'm just gonna go and score, and then the junior and senior year where you kind of take a step back and you're like, I'm gonna see the whole court and get everyone involved?
Yeah, the game definitely slows down to you. I think every level,
Right.
when you first step into it, like a kid that first comes to high school as a freshman or sophomore and plays their first varsity game, it's fast. And then you realize, all right, you kind of figure it out and you get used to the pace. It's like facing a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in the major leagues. Those guys, they're used to it now. Mm-hmm. It's not fast to them anymore. Same thing at college. Once you kind of get past that first year, because my first year, what was really fast to me was the defensive end. Fast guys that you're guarding, bigger guys that you're guarding. When you box them out, they're knocking you around. they're running more plays than you're used to seeing, and you got to see it all and see what's going on behind you, know what's going on behind you, things like that. So that stuff, as you see more games, the way it slows down to you is you become smarter about the game. You watch on film like, okay, these guys run the same plays that this team ran a couple games ago, so I'm familiar with that. Then the next scouting report you see, and it's something else that you just become more familiar with how teams play as you study the game, and then that's what really helps slow it down too.
Yeah, so we talked about a little bit March Madness. A phrase that kind of gets thrown around is the importance of guard play and free throw shooting in those tournaments. As a guard and a pretty good free throw shooter, did you feel a little more increased pressure, just like in a more ball handling role, just because it's the bigger stage in March?
No, I felt like we just played our game. We stuck to what we did. I had two really good post players I played with, especially my junior year. And actually, when we got beaten in the Sweet 16 by Connecticut, who had 3 first-round draft picks, they were a loaded team, our two bigs had great games. We went inside to our big guy named Roland Roberts, who ended up with 26 points in that game, and he scored our first 10 points of the game. We went right to him. He's 5 for 5. We had another guy, Jermaine Dearman, who was 6'8". He scored 17 points. And none of us guards had a very good game, mainly because we never got going.
Mm-hmm.
We went to those guys, and it was working. And that's kind of what I was talking about, sharing the ball and having other guys get involved. A lot of us guards never really got involved that game. So that was different, where we had so many different weapons, though, that game. That's what was working. And we went at Omeka Okafor, who was a 7-footer, and we were scoring on him, and we were trying to get him in foul trouble. We didn't get him in foul trouble, but we were scoring, so it's working. But then when we all had our shot attempts, which was very few during that, we didn't knock him down. We were also playing in the Syracuse Dome, which is a hard place to shoot in, so we also knew that going inside might be the best bet. But, guard play typically gets a lot of pressure put on you anyways. Used to that, been a guard my whole life, so nothing changed. But really in the NCAA tournament, it didn't feel like there was a difference in how we played.
Yeah.
As for pressure in general, as that 11 seed, no one really knows who you are. Kind of what St. Peter's is going through right now, Oral Roberts last year. Did you have, when you got to that Sweet 16 game, were you starting to feel the pressure of the media, or were you kind of still like, hey man, we're not supposed to be here, so let's just go out there and have fun?
I didn't feel any pressure. You just knew that the game was going to be that much tougher.
Right.
We beat Texas Tech when Bob Knight was there, and then we beat Georgia the next round, which we were actually down 27-9 in the first half, and then we cut it to 33-30 by halftime, and then we knew we were going to win when we cut it there. We got the momentum, we're going.
Yeah.
When we played in the Sweet 16, it was us, Connecticut, Maryland, and Kentucky. So you go up and you look at those banners, you're like, all right, Maryland. They were they were the number 1 seed, I think. And then obviously Kentucky is Kentucky.
Yeah.
And UConn had just won a national championship not too much before that. And then there's the Salukis right there. So, yeah, it does feel like you're out of place a little bit. But, yeah, you come with a chip on your shoulder, we're going to show them, what we can do. And, we gave it a good game. We were right there, just couldn't get over the hump. But that's what a lot of these mid-majors, when they get to that point, just got to stay focused. And there's been some that have broken through. Loyola and Wichita have made it to the finals. Butler obviously had been in a championship game. VCU. So there's been schools that have busted through the Sweet 16 round and have gotten to that next weekend, which is a big deal.
Yeah. And obviously, on the flip side of that, coaching at Tennessee and Purdue, when you run into those teams, I'm sure you feel much more pressure. We talked about in the last episode the Kentucky St. Peter's game and the pressure and embarrassment I'm sure Kentucky felt for losing. They're such a historic program. So how did that feel as a coach? Did you feel more pressure as a coach, do you think?
Well, there's a great story for you right here. My last year at Tennessee, we get the 11 seed. We're in the play-in game. So we're playing Iowa, which I was glad that we were playing Iowa because they're a well-known team. It's a high major. Our kids are going to respect them. And for whatever reason, kids at the high level, they don't sometimes respect the lower level teams, like you said. Well, we go to overtime. We beat them. we advance. Then we play UMass. So I'm assistant coach. I'm scouting the game before, which is Duke versus Mercer. We're going to play the winner of it. Mercer upsets Duke, all right, just like the St. Peter's game. So first of all, we go in the locker room and our guys are fired up. They're like, man, we beat UMass. We got to beat Mercer to go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, much easier.
Which is much easier, knowing that Duke's not the team waiting for you. And we were in Raleigh, North Carolina. so
it's a packed house.
It's going to be
Duke fans.
Yeah, it's going to be Duke fans. So we beat UMass. We actually blew them out. And then we're going to play Mercer the next round. We don't beat Mercer if we didn't play Mercer the year before. We played Mercer the year before in the NIT, and they beat us at our place. Mm-hmm. So our guys already knew who Mercer was. They knew how good they were. They weren't shocked that they beat Duke. And our guys were locked in, ready to go. And Mercer played a great game against us. Our guys just played even that much better. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we win that game as well as Mercer played if we don't play in the year before.
Right.
So it's funny how things all work out. And it's like the year before, we're devastated. Our NIT season came to an end because we got beat by Mercer. But if that doesn't happen, if we blow them out and we beat them, maybe we don't have a Sweet 16 run that following year.
It's crazy to think about how the butterfly effect in sports like that. But yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing I saw like that last year, it was Arkansas and Coach Musselman had a schedule that played like Oral Roberts, North Texas. They played a bunch of those mid-major schools that ended up making the tournament. So it's just like thinking about that for later games is important. And then you talked about your coaching at Tennessee. Was there a time? How different is it coaching for 3 different programs and the different levels too? How do you feel like that works?
Yeah, it's definitely a different feeling everywhere you go. The recruiting's different. Who's interested in you and who's not. Who calls you back and who doesn't. When I was at Tennessee and Purdue and you make phone calls, they call you back. When I was at Missouri State and SIU Edwardsville, you might not get a call back. So you just kind of got to figure out the game there a little bit and know where you fit in. But, the coaching business is crazy. Going back to my days at Purdue, so we were in my second and third year there, we made it to the second round both times. My first year we beat Arizona, and then we went on to play Florida, who was the defending national champs, and they beat us, and they went on to win their back-to-back. Yeah. Then my next year we play Baylor, and we beat them, and then we got beat by Xavier. Well, I was coaching with Conzo Martin, who was assistant coach, and he already knew he had the Missouri State job while we were coaching in that game. And I already knew I was going with him as assistant coach. So we're sitting there planning on, trying to get to the Sweet 16, trying to beat Xavier to move on. We get beat, and then we're sitting there, and I'm with Matt Painter and the rest of the staff. And, Painter's like, well, it's great working with you guys. Like, he knows we're out the door and we're going. And then so it turns around, there's one more week of basketball, obviously, and then there's the Final Four. We all go to the Final Four. We go to meetings, do stuff. And I left the Final Four and went straight to Missouri State and was there and started my next job. Yeah. So that's how quick things turn. Look, the coach from Murray State, which is a good friend of mine, Matt McMahon, he just got the LSU job 2 days after. Jans, the coach at New Mexico State, it wasn't even 16 hours later, he's already introduced as the head coach at Mississippi State. Like, they just got beat last night, and the next morning he's being announced as their head coach. So it's a crazy business at this time of the year where job changes and things like that happen. But that's one thing that stood out with me when I was at Purdue and just working there. And it's like, man, we built up to this whole season. You want to go back and consult your guys that just got beat and the seniors are done. And here we are. We're moving on to the next job and things like that. So it shows that it's a business at times too. Yeah,
and just a little bit about some of the other coaches you work with. Do you have any – obviously, Coach Painter is playing right now, and he's the coach of Purdue. Do you have any stories about him and why he's been so successful for so long?
I'm not shocked at all that he's been this successful, and that goes back to when he was my assistant coach when I played at SIU. He was Bruce Weber's right-hand man. He ran practices a lot of times. He's a basketball junkie. He just absorbs it all, takes it all in. He's a fan of the game, and he's not afraid to adapt. His way is not the only way. he sees something else out there. He's made adjustments to it, and he stays calm, and he just sees the game really well. One of the most memorable stories I had working with Painter was, so when I first got hired by him, I didn't have a place to live yet. He's like, "Where are you going to come stay with me?" And I stayed with him for like 6 weeks until I found a place and all this. And we're sitting in the basement, and we were watching the Masters when Tiger chips that one in where the ball just on 16, where it rolls down, it stops on the edge. And we were both watching just on the Sunday afternoon, like, oh, and then it goes in, like, we jump up and scream, and we're just sitting there, like, he's like doing notes, right, drawing up basketball stuff and plays while we're watching it. And his wife comes down and screams at us, like, "I got a baby up here sleeping, like, Tiger just chipped it in." She's like, "I don't care." But no, he's just that guy that you can just kind of hang around with and talk basketball with. Obviously, I've worked with Conzo Martin. Unfortunately, didn't work out for him at Mizzou here, but he's been successful a lot of other places, and played for Bruce Weber, and he's had a storied career. Took Illinois to a final, to a national championship game. Some of the other guys I worked with, Paul Lusk was the head coach at Missouri State for about 7 or 8 years as well. So I've been with some lucky guys. Yeah. While I worked at Purdue, Coach Katie used to come in and tell a bunch of stories, which that was the cool thing, going to work at a place like Purdue where Matt Painter played for Gene Katie, and Gene Katie was still in town, and he would come in, and we were in the middle of working and doing stuff, and he'd come in the door. It's like, all right, it's time to put your stuff down. He's going to tell some stories and talk about stuff. Who knows where it's going to lead to, and but it's always great to hear those.
All right, we'll do one last question, and then coming from multiple years in the college business, how has that transition been over to high school, and how's that worked out, and how's that been?
I mean, I've loved every minute I've been here. The one thing about coaching at college, you're coaching 18 to 20-year-olds, but you're recruiting 15 to 18-year-olds, right? So you're on the phone almost with high school kids just as much as you are with college kids, because you spend a lot of time recruiting. So I'm really just kind of working that stage, one step before what I was doing. So, just working with the guys, trying to get them to understand, if you want to go play at that next level, these are the things that they're looking for, and this is what you have to do to get there. Not just basketball-wise, but in the classroom, in the weight room, growing up as a man, things like that. And this school is great for developing kids into men. We actually just had our basketball banquet, and I talked a lot about that, seeing these guys that I brought in as freshmen and watching them grow up to be seniors, and can't wait to see what they go on and do. And I don't mean basketball. I mean what they go on and do. And Dennis Gates actually said it at Missouri the other day. You run a successful program when your players are inviting you to their weddings, right. And when it gets to that point, we've got good kids here. I love coaching them. We're developing. We've had a lot of success here the last several years. Like the direction it's going, and coaching at that level, at the college level, has really prepared me to understand what I need to do, and the guys have been around, what I need to run a program. It's not just X's and O's. It's not just basketball. It's a culture, and the culture is the program. And when guys get hurt, we've had adversity. We had Brendan Lovett misses pretty much his whole senior year. Yaya Keita missed his whole senior year. Who knows what we do the last 2 years if we have those guys playing.
Right.
Maybe we have back-to-back state championships. I don't know. But regardless, whether you score a few more points or not, or win a few more games or not, it's about impacting these kids' lives, and I'm enjoying it and loving every minute of it. So,
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, preparing kids for the next step. I feel like that was always grade school is preparing you for high school, and then high school, basketball, whether it's in the classroom, just preparing you for college and life beyond that. Is pretty cool. So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
For coming on the podcast, and thank you guys for listening in. We will see you guys soon.